Hi guys, as Richard said, I've been here many times, probably 50 times or 40 times in the last few years, and that can only be because of one reason, of course. That's because my girlfriend lives here. But it's really nice to be here, also to do a talk. I joined John in a lot of Best of SMR events and also the big conference in Macau, and we're going to actually talk. We're going to share the talk we did there. The talk is about one of the big trends too that's happening and coming and has happened, e-commerce, right? E-commerce is big, especially in Western markets, especially in big Asian markets like Japan, China. It's growing here too. There's a lot of commercials of Lazada and what is it, Sendo, right? To get people to these websites and really promote online commerce, right? So we're going to talk about that, how we can grow that further. And to stay on point, we're not going to talk actually whole much about research and data collection methods and all of that. We're actually going to talk about people, about human psychology, and how as researchers and how as marketeers, better understanding how people think and behave and make decisions will actually help you make very much stronger decisions and really impact your business. And we have a case to prove that. So e-commerce, don't want to spend too much time on this, but clearly it's growing. In Vietnam, it's still relatively in the early stages. For example, Vietnamese e-commerce market is only 3% today, as it's, for example, in Japan. But clearly, there will be a long path of catch-up that they are catching up, right? So very relevant here too. This presentation was actually a collaboration with Cho from Q10. Q10 is one of the bigger e-commerce platforms in Asia, and it's actually the biggest one in Singapore. So what we did is we worked with them to see if our theories, our strategies are tapping into human psychology, if it actually worked. And there's a video here, but for the sake of time, because I think we're in a bit of a tight schedule, I'm not going to share the video where Cho explains his opinion, but I will just summarize it for you in a few lines. See, there's no sound anyway, so we will just continue. But basically, what Cho is saying is that in the early days of e-commerce, and I would say Vietnam probably is still in those days, but there was a lot of effort and money spent on getting people to the site. Just get people to the site where you buy stuff, through Google search words or like ads or, above the line advertising. And a lot of money went there, to get as many impressions as you could for the product that you were trying to sell online. But in the more developed markets, more developed e-commerce market, now the focus is shifting. Not so much from getting a lot of impressions, of course, that's very important too, but they really focused on the moment they then have you on the website and trying to sell you that product. How can they really make a meaningful connection with you at that point? And how can we increase those click-through rates and add to basket rate, conversion rate? So actually, how can we do a much better job at selling once we have the client, or sorry, the customer on the website? And that is what we're going to talk about. And the use of images that you use to present your products play a very, very important role there. And that's why this talk is about images and how to improve those images to better drive conversion on e-commerce sites. And I'm going to spoil you a little bit so that you continue to pay attention. Very simple changes can lead to dramatic increases in sales, and we don't need a single piece of research to do that. Right? So your clients will love that part too. But it won't contribute to the 100 million going on. But why are images so useful? Because actually through images you can overcome two challenges that are inherent to selling online. The two challenges that we're going to talk about, first one is there's just so many products available online. How do you know which one to find? And second is, when you buy something online, you cannot touch it, you cannot taste it, you cannot smell it. All your senses are muted, which makes it much more difficult to see what you're buying and feel confident in the purchase that you make. Images can help solve both of these, not fully, but to a large degree. And that's why improving your images will be very impactful. So this is just an example of you guys know Lazada, right? Lazada is active here too. Type in shampoo, 52,000 results. I don't know which one to buy if I see this many, right? And a lot of people have that problem. So how can we solve that? We can solve this by first thinking about how people actually shop. Taking a step back and look, how do they process all the data when they own one of these platforms? And this is actually what they see. What they see is not much. They scroll very fast, you know. I know Facebook is incredibly popular in Vietnam, and people spend a lot of time on that scrolling, and so do they do that on e-commerce websites and platforms. And what you notice, this eye tracking data, this is real, observed from how people actually shop. And you see that they spend most of their effort and focus on the visuals, not on the text. You know, it's very easy to put clear product descriptions and writing next to the image, but nobody really looks at that anyway. So we need to solve this through the visual. That's possible. And actually Unilever, of course, the leading company in research, started trying to solve this problem already many years ago. They worked with Cambridge University in the UK, and later they brought us into for the research part, and they developed something to solve this particular problem, which was called the hero image. And here you can see what a hero image is. On the left, you see a regular pack shot of a shampoo, and on the right, you see something that's called a hero image. You can immediately see that they're very different, right? What do you see? You see very clearly what the brand is. You also see very clearly what the variant is. You also see very clearly what the size is. And you even very clearly see what the type of product is. Because this bottle could also be a hand soap or a body wash or something like that. So they use a zoomed in version with some additional information so that when you're on your website or on your phone scrolling through options, you can really quickly identify what the product is in front of you. And hero image guidelines that were released by Unilever under the name Cambridge Standards, which were actually developed by SKIM, and I was writing the recommendations myself. But that's how it goes, you know, the bigger brand always wins, and Cambridge University sounds better than SKIM. You know, so they released that, and it was a big success. And all the other companies started following that. So, you know, if you go to these platforms in Europe, you see a lot of these images that really try to make it clear how many is in that, what variant, what flavor, and all of that. And these quickly became new industry standards because they actually helped increase click rates, conversion, and sales, right? So this was very good. But I actually spent 10 years in New York working before I moved to Singapore 3 years ago. And when I moved to Singapore, I encountered something that was very new to me. When I went to the websites, the online e-commerce platforms, I saw chaos like this. You know, a lot of images, a lot of zooms, a lot of ads, a lot of chaos in my mind, right? And very little hero images. So I was, that is strange. This works so well, why don't they use it here, right? So that's one thing that we wanted to test. Do these images work here too, in Asia? But then also, we work a lot in psychology, and we felt that based on the theories that we have, and work closely with the University of New York on, that we actually can increase the images further, and even go beyond the hero images to drive even more success on these online platforms. And that brings us to the second problem that we tried to solve. Online, people cannot touch, smell, or taste your product. All your senses are muted. So how are you going to overcome that, right? If you can overcome that to a certain degree, then likelihood of purchase goes up a lot, right? To answer that question, let's first look at how consumers shop in general. Actually, this goes way beyond consumers. It's just about people, how they think. But let's keep it simple and just think about how consumers shop for a product. Let's think about shampoo. You know, when you start buying a shampoo, everybody of you has a very clear image in your mind what you want to get out of buying that shampoo. Maybe you know you want to put in the pump version, so it's easy to get the shampoo out. But more likely than anything, you start thinking about the effect that the shampoo will have on your hair. Will it make soft hair? Will it make smooth hair? Will it make nice volume, right? So, this is why I want to do a little exercise with you. So, the only presenter that will ever ask you to close your eyes. And then, think about when you buy a shampoo. What do you want? What do you see? How do you want your hair to look? Lester, what do you see?
Lather.
Sorry?
A lot of lather.
Lather?
In my almost all hair.
Well, that's still good, eh? But, what you guys see doesn't really matter. But all of you see something. And it's different for all of you. But there is a very clear image that you have, and even certain emotions attached to it. If your hair looks good, you feel confident. And this is the product experience that you're aspiring to if you buy shampoo. Now, if I'm a shampoo brand and I want to sell you my shampoo, technically the only thing I have to do is convince you that that image that you have in your mind and that you aspire to, you're going to get from buying my shampoo. Makes sense, right? But it's very often forgotten. So the question now is, how can we do that? The answer is very simple. As a brand, I have words available to me, I have visuals available to me, and I can use those to try to shape and paint an image that matches that image that you have in your mind. And if I do that successfully, that's when I can connect with you and start changing your behavior and start getting you to click on those images, etc. So, to illustrate that, here are two images. One does a good job at this, and the other one doesn't do a good job at this. If you see this image, it's even hard to see that this is a shampoo, right? This could also be just a body wash. You don't know how it smells. You don't know what fragrance it is, what it does for you. This image, on the other hand, is very clear. It starts painting a very clear picture of what you're going to get. It even tells you get soft and smooth hair. It shows you the ingredients, so you get an idea of how it will smell. Right? It triggers certain associations you have stored deep inside you from smelling a flower before, and it even brings the end benefits to life through, a girl with beautiful hair. So, in more formal terms, what we are experiencing here is an image that has very high psychological distance and an image that has very low psychological distance. And high psychological distance means the image is very abstract. It's very far away from you. You cannot really relate to it because it doesn't really feel very concrete. But that image comes very close to you because it's very clear that what you're going to get. You can relate to it. It comes very close to you. So the distance between you as the consumer and the brand is very close. And the closer that distance, the more likely they are to want it. So reducing psychological distance basically helps create a connection between what the brand offers and the consumer wants. So now let's see how we can do this online, right? So this is a traditional pack shot that we can put on any website. Then we have the hero images that Unilever created, which already do a better job at showing what you'll get, because now it's clear what the physical attributes of the product are. You make sure you get the right size, right fragrance, and all of that. Then we can add what we call a sensorial cue that tells you and helps you understand at a subconscious level actually how the product will also smell, right? So some of the senses that are muted online are now unlocked because of the sensorial cue that you're sharing. But we can also go all out and do everything we can through words and visuals to bring the product experience to life as much as we can, close that gap between the product and the brand, and through, as we predict, really, really improve performance. So we did this for shampoo and we did this for chocolate. And for chocolate we follow the same steps and we start taking the product out of the package so people can actually see what they're putting in their mouth and that they're buying. Then we tested this. And how did we test this? We basically used the methodology that was the same as developing the hero image guidelines for Unilever's before. And that is to basically replicate the online e-commerce environment. So we basically built an app that looks exactly like the real Q10 platform, and then we let people shop on there. So I would say this is in between asking and observing, because we're observing actual behavior, but we're still controlling it, so that we have the data and not the client or Facebook or Amazon, right? And then we did this for shampoo and chocolates, almost 1,000 respondents for both categories. We had 5 different types of images from low to high psychological distance. And then we manipulated the images for 5 different brands in each category, so we have a lot of data to look at. And then this is what we found. So this is from primary research, right? Later I'll show you the impact of actually implementing it on the actual platform. So standard patch shot, as predicted, was the worst. The standard hero image already increased click-through rates from the search page and actually add to basket rates. So we knew this because Unilever had also validated this, that this is an improvement over this. Also in Asia, this works. This is Singapore and also China, we did this. Then we add a sensorial cue, almost on par performance. The flower maybe not being enough. But then, when we start really going all out and using the image that we discussed before, we see huge jumps in click-through rates and sales. And we also tested the image, the actual image that the website had online. But you see big improvements over standard image, already the hero image. We can do much better. For chocolate, it's even more. What you can see for chocolate is that we start approaching growth of like 30 to 40% in click-through rates and sales. And the big difference maker here is taking the product out of the package. Because we have to realize when a consumer buys a product, they don't buy the package. The package is just a means to an end. They buy the product inside. They want to put that in their mouth. They want to taste that and all of that. So showing that clearly and giving them a clear impression of what they're going to get will really reduce psychological distance and boost sales, right? So impressive numbers, but of course, this is primary data, experimental data, and this is what our industry is built on. But of course, we always get the question, what about real life implementation? Is this validated? Blah, 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 right? So, well, it's good to have a friend that runs the company or the e-commerce platform, so we did implement it. And this is what we saw. So we changed for shampoo, because there's a lot of traffic in shampoo. We changed the existing images to the new images, and then got the day-by-day click data and sales data. And what we saw is that if we change that image to our image, we actually increased the page views by 64% and the sales by 40%. And then also for other images, we saw increases. And you see that these increases are versus an already pretty good image that they had online, not a regular pack shot. If this would have been a regular pack shot, those numbers would have been much greater. And the better your Photoshop skills at the top, of course, the better the impact. But the key takeaway here is that, you know, we can, of course, research a lot, and that's also very important. But, you know, sometimes we need to take a step back and just think about how consumers, how does their mind work? That's why I'm a big fan of behavioral economics or human psychology or however we want to call it. If we really understand those processes that happen in the brain and adapt, you know, our marketing strategies, images in this case to that, we can make a huge impact. And you can get a huge return on investment on very small changes, right? So, and then of course research can help us figure out, okay, which are the exact right iterations that maximize this opportunity. But this is what we wanted to talk about today, right? So understand the human mind and have a big impact in your business or your client business. And if you use the same principles to write better proposals, you will also increase your go rate too. Thank you. Okay. Somebody has a question, happy to answer.
Any questions of Paul?
Yeah, I think think I've seen your presentation.
Yes.
Many times. It just struck me today, and I know e-commerce hasn't been around that long, but why do you think it took so long for the hero image idea to emerge?
I think that because everything was relatively new, people were just first focused on the logistics very much, right? So when I talked to my friend Joe, actually this started when we were both in INSEAD in business school a few years ago, and we were drinking beers, and I said, your website is so shit. And you know, you can do so much better if you do the right visuals, like all of that. And you know, then he told me, it's like, of course at first he was a little bit shocked by my comments, but it was just beers and banter. But then actually he started working on it, ended up collaborating. But he was explaining to me, our focus was just not there, you know, our focus was on building the infrastructure behind it, getting the product to the consumers, getting traffic to our website, making sure that the sellers on our platforms have good customer service, and all of that. So they just simply didn't get to the stage yet of actually fine-tuning, you know, the whole offering to the consumer, which we do naturally, but they don't. You know, at the end of the day, e-retailers are technology companies to a certain degree, and they think less about that, right? And that's slowly changing to basically fuel the next spur of growth in the developing markets, because they need to get more efficient about the money they spend. Oh, yes. I think it applies to everything. Usually when I give a training on it, I start by showing the commonalities between telling a joke, selling a project as an agency to a client, convincing your wife or your husband on where to go on vacation, right? You know, everybody that, you know, when we communicate, we always have an objective to communicate. You know, we always want to trigger some kind of action in the other person, whether that's to buy your product, give you your project, or get your wife on board with the idea that you're presenting, or convince your boss of something, right? It's all the same thing. Because the person that you're talking to, they always have an aspiration. And that aspiration, that goal lives very vividly in their head. So if you as the communicator, regardless of what it is, do a good job at bringing that aspiration, that idea, that goal that this other party has to life, your chances increase dramatically in being more successful, right? So, you know, that's why I apply this to proposals and everything. You know, it's the same principles apply, because it's based on human DNA, right? It's not, you know, you're not just only a consumer, you're also a consumer and a husband and a boss or an employee, right? It's all the same for me.